Hello crochet crafters. Today we're going to make a flower using a foundation chain so it's a little bit raised, and you can use this applique for a sweater or you can use it for a greeting card, whatever you'd like. This one has an open and this one's closed with the middle, so I'll show you how to do both of those. And we're going to use a size 5 or an F USA crochet hook, and I'm using a little bit of this dusty pink, and it is a cotton yarn by Lily Sugar and Cream. So if you have a yarn that you like to use, that's fine. So go ahead and get your yarn onto your crochet hook, and then we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. However you like to chain 6, there's no special technique for it. And then the first stitch that you created, the first chain, you're going to go ahead and put your crochet hook right through there, and we're going to slip stitch. So mine's a little tight because I just pulled it a little tight, and I'm just pulling it through that stitch in the next one in order to create a circle. So that's kind of the middle of the circle that we're going to be working in. And what we're going to be doing from here is we're going to go ahead and create 3 double crochets. So you wrap it around once and you put it through the middle of the circle. We're working through the middle of the circle for all of this right now. And as you do your double crochet, you work it through the first 2, and then you have 2, and then you work it through the next 2. Now I'm going to show you slowly how to do that a couple more times, but if you need a video, I do have a video on how to do a half double crochet. So we're always working in the middle of the circle, and we're pulling that out, wrapping it around, pulling it through the first 2, wrapping it around and putting it through the second 2. Wrapping it around, and we're working through the middle of the circle we created. And we're going to do a 3rd double crochet. And then what we're going to do is a slip stitch. So you just put your hook through the middle there and then just slip stitch it through. So this is actually what's considered a petal. That's going to be the first petal of your project. And we're going to create 4 more of those working inside this chain. So if you're and we're going to follow the same process. So we're going to do and I'm not going to go slow with this anymore because you can get the idea. We're doing 3 double crochets to make the petal. So you go ahead and pause me or catch up with me. Then we're going to slip stitch into the middle, just like that. So you have 2. And if you need to, you can push this over on that chain, slide it right over. That's a little trick so that you have more left. So as you're working, you still have more room within this chain. I may end up, this is called a tail, and I'm probably going to try to work my tail into my work as I go around. So right now I slip stitch, so I'm going to do 3 more to make my 3rd petal. And then I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch that. So you're working in the middle and you're slip stitching, and I'm pulling that over. So I have 3 petals. I need to do that 2 more times to have 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, and I'm slip stitching when I get to the end of that. So now I have 4 petals, and I've just pushed that over. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do my last petal for the first row. So this is using double crochets and slip stitching. Okay, so I've done 5, and I'm going to go ahead and go into that first petal and slip stitch over. Okay, so you should have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beautiful little petals on your foundation, and you're going to go ahead and chain 1, 2, 3, 4. I shouldn't have used the word foundation on your first row. The foundation is going to be on the back. So once you've done the 4 chains, you're going to flip your work. Now this is very important. Now I've worked my tail in here a little bit, and I don't mind at the end of the project I can cut it off or do whatever. But you have 3 double crochets right here. So you're going to count 1 and 2 over, and on that 3rd back loop, working into that 3rd back loop right there, you're going to grab it, and then you're just going to slip stitch through. So if you look at this now, you have what's called a foundation chain, and this is what we're going to hook our, see, that's a foundation chain. I'm going to be working into that. So you're going to go ahead and chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and working into that 3rd petal. 1, 2, 3, right there, and I've got my tail too, so I'm just, don't pay attention to that tail. And we're going to go ahead and slip stitch. So now I've got 2 foundation chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm counting 1, 2, 3, and I'm going into that. You're going into your 3rd petal, slip stitching. That was a little bit of a slip stitch. So you should have 1, 2, 3 foundation chains now. And then you're going to do 1. You're chaining 4 this to make this foundation chain. And again, you're counting. Remember, you're going into the last back loop, and you're working in the back of your flower. So remember, when you're doing the foundation chains, you're working in the back of the flower. When you're actually building the flower, you're working in the front of the flower. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 foundation chains. I need 1 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to go in again into that last loop of my, sometimes they're hard to grab. Just kind of pop it up there. There we go. And slip stitch. So what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to turn. So you should have five foundation chains, and they look something like that. And what we're doing is we're working within those foundation chains. So as you just chained it, we're going to be working through here, okay? But we're going to be doing, instead of 3 double crochets in this one, we're going to be doing 4 double crochets. So working in the foundation chain, you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have something like that. And then you're going to go ahead and slip stitch in that foundation chain to make the first petal. Then in the second foundation chain, you're going to slip stitch, and you're going to do 4 more to make another petal. It's another row of petals. 2, 3, and my yarn is gotta be stretched out a little bit. 4, and you're going to do a slip stitch. So that's petal number 2. Petal number 3 is in the next foundation chain right there, and you're going to slip stitch in, and then you're going to do 4 double crochets. So essentially all the way across, You're doing 4 double crochets. Whoops, I don't know why that slipped off. It's a little bit humid here today. And it happens. If you make a mistake, just undo it. There's no rush. There's no race. And then you're going to do a slip stitch. So you're slip stitching as you go through. So you can see your flower like that, starting to take shape, and you're going to slip stitch into the next one. And we have 2 more sets of 4 to make 5 petals. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 double crochets, a slip stitch in. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the next one. And the slip stitch essentially brings it down, so it gives it that petal look. If you didn't slip stitch it, it would just look flat all the way across. And that's why you're adding that slip stitch, because it pulls that double crochet down and gives it that petal look. And then you're going to slip stitch. Now, a lot of you might ask me why I didn't add a slip stitch in this first one, because when I chained one and came back around, it already pulled it down. So typically when I turn from the foundation chain, my very first one that I start with, I don't do a slip stitch. But if you want to, just so that it keeps you accurate, you're welcome to do that. So going into that first one, I'm going to go ahead and do a slip stitch and bring this together. I'm going to go ahead and chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to turn my work. So what I'm going to do before we even move forward is I'm not going to keep this tail. So I've worked my tail back in, and I'm going to get rid of the little remnants. And that way it's gone. I don't have it. I'm not going to be confused by it, because this is a small flower. So now you have, instead of 3 crochets, double crochets, you have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 4th one has a back loop right there. So what you're going to do is in that back loop of the 4th one, you're going to put your hook through, and you're going to slip stitch. And then you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, 4, 5. And then again, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, going into that back loop of the last one, you're going to do a slip stitch. Sorry about that if I'm off camera. And then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and slip stitch into that last loop. So slip stitch, you're bringing it through both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've done 1, 2, 3 foundation chains. I'm about to do my 4th foundation chain in the back of the loop. And as I go around, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm bringing it back to my last foundation chain, my last loop right here, which that always seems to be the hardest one to get into. And you know what? Doesn't matter how long you've been crocheting, sometimes I missed it. My hook is a little bit, this is a little bit tight. I'm going to have to do this a little different. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that last loop that I did is very tight, and I'm having a little bit of problem, so I'm going to push through with my fingers there. And you might have the same problem. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 foundation chains, and I'm going to slip stitch into that last loop right there, and I'm going to chain 1 and turn. So you should have, you're always working in the front when you're doing your flower, you're working in the back, this is your foundation. And you want to just make sure you have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I do. So you have a 5 foundation chain, so you're doing 5 double crochets. And like I said, If you want in this first one, if it makes it easier for you to just slip stitch so that you make sure you're keeping the same pattern, you can do that. Again, for the first one, I'm going to slip stitch back in so it doesn't, it's okay, but I want to keep the pattern the same. So 2, and you're going to do 5 in this round. 5 for your petal. And then I'm going to show you how to do the middle. And then you're going to slip stitch in the same one. Remember, you're slip stitching in the same one around. And then you're going to go into the next foundation chain and slip stitch, and then you're going to do 5 crochets, 1, double crochets, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and slip stitch into the same foundation chain. Go into the next one, slip stitch into the same foundation chain. So I have 2 that I've made. I have 3 more to go on these ones. So I'm going to go ahead and do 5 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And slip stitch, and then I have 2 more to go. I've done 3. I'm going to slip stitch into the next, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and then slip stitch into the same. So you're slip stitching twice, slip stitching in. You're slip stitching in before you begin, and then you're slip stitching out. So you're going to slip stitch in to the next one, and this is my last petal. So I have 5 double crochets on this last petal. 1, 2, 3. Again, you're working in the foundation chain from the front, creating the petal, and from the back, creating the foundation chain. And I've got 5, and I'm slip stitching in. So on this last one, I have a little bit of a gap there. So I'm going to come back around to where I started, and I'm going to slip stitch that in to bring the flower together. Now I'll show you that again. If you wanted to do that, you can even actually take it down to the next one down here. You just want to bring it together. You can even sew it together. And that brings your flower together like so. And I'm going to show you how to do the middle now if you want to hang in there. So I'm just cut it off. I'm going to pull it through. And then you're going to work this through simply with a sewing needle, and you're just going to work that back through. And if you need a video on how to work your tails in, I also have a video on that on LorisHandyWork. And right now what we're going to do is just create the little puffer stitch. You can leave it like that, and you can create a bunch of them for a sweater, or like I said, for a greeting card, and then put a stem on it. But all I do right now is I simply create a little puffer stitch, which is pretty easy. You just get your yarn onto your crochet hook, and you chain 2, leaving it kind of loose. And then in that first stitch, you're going to wrap it around, pull it through. You have 3 on there. Wrap it around, pull it through, wrap it around, and pull it through. And that's enough of a puffer. Wrap it around, and then just grab this like this, and then pull it through all of them. So as you're doing that, and then you're going to just do a single crochet and pull it off, cut it, and here's what I do. Take this, put the ends, tie them together, and then you've got a little puffer middle, And when you do it, you can either sew it on, or if you're doing a card, you can glue it on. It doesn't really have to be. But if you're going to use this for a sweater, you're going to take this and sew this into there, and then you have your little puffer middle. And that's really it. So please join me again on Lori's Handiwork, and I appreciate you joining me today. Have a great day.